Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to GNG LinkedIn Live. This is Gurpreet and Gail's LinkedIn Live segment. Sorry about last week. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, so we will be rescheduling our employee branding segment in the coming weeks. So sorry about that. Well, we're back. I'm back. I've missed a few of these live, and Gail had to do them solo. But we're back with a great topic to talk about salaries. And the topic is don't cheap out on salary. The reason we're talking about this is the stuff that's been floating around that I've seen, Gail's seen. It's nothing new, but I guess because a lot of people are more vocal about it, we thought it was a good benefit to talk about the salaries. A lot of companies, typically, since I work with small, medium-sized companies, both Gail and I work with small, medium-sized companies, I do see it a lot with smaller, medium-sized companies because the budget might be too tight, and then you opt out to pay less, but then you want this all this stuff that I call it the moon and the star, but then you don't want to pay that. So we're going to dive deep into this topic about why you shouldn't be being cheap on salaries. A lot of time people have misconceptions around salaries, like, okay, I'll pay 50, but then you end up maybe hiring two resources at 50, the cost is still 100K. Want to hire one person at a cost that maybe 70, 80K that can produce the same level. So sometimes I think companies are not strategic at analyzing the role and the cost of it. And some companies just totally either know it all or just cheap out and, again, budget constraints, or think they don't have to pay X amount because they can get somebody for 50K, but they want 10 years and master degrees and whatnot. We see this all the time on LinkedIn where people are talking about this. Even new grads are talking about this. Well, how are you calling an entry level role if you're looking for 5 years experience? You're calling it entry level, but you're paying entry level, but you want somebody with 5 years of experience. So that's our topic today, because I think it's a much, much needed discussion to be had, especially on this platform, LinkedIn, when it comes to salary, because a lot of companies we've seen this mix. So I think it's about time we openly had a discussion on this, on why companies shouldn't be cheaping out on salary. You shouldn't lowball any candidates. You shouldn't be paying less. You should pay for what you're looking for. So let's dive deep right into it. As always, I'm going to let Gail share his perspective first. Gail?
So yeah, it's a really important topic because, I mean, somebody's financial wellness, regardless of the size of the organization, is something that's huge, especially through COVID, and how difficult things are with the uncertainty, with the instability. But this reminds me of when I was doing recruiting for a couple of years. I worked with a few third-party recruiters, partnered with them. They always had their salary guidebooks. And in their salary guidebooks, they always had 3 sizes of company for each role. So any given role, there was what a small company would be paying for it, what a medium company would be paying for it, and what a large company would be paying for it. So the unfortunate reality and the norm is that the expectation is, in a smaller company, you're going to be getting paid less. Mm-hmm. Which is a really interesting thing, considering from my experience and from working with a wide variety of organizations, that the smaller the company, the wider the range of responsibilities you're going to have. But in the end, they're also expecting to be paying you less. Resources are fewer. I understand the constraints are fewer, but the reality is that you're limiting who you can bring in the door. You're limiting who you can bring in the door, because if people are looking at what's available in the market and they don't value what a small company can bring to them, mm-hmm. and what are the benefits, because we could talk another time about benefits of small company versus large company, and it's a very interesting dynamic, and there's pros and cons of each. But in reality, all things equal, you're paying them less money. And you make a really, really great point about, instead of paying 2 people the same amount what it could cost for one person who really knows what they're doing. There's a great video I saw online of an example of this, there were 2 or 3 soccer players or football players, depending on where you are in the world, who were pros. And then they were with a bunch of kids. And so maybe like 100 kids. So 3 pros were dancing around these 100 kids. And that's what you pay for, right? When you pay for experience, you pay for people who know what they're already doing. And so if that's what you're looking for, now I'm not saying that's what everybody should be looking for, but if that's what you're looking for, then you need to know that your pool's just going to be smaller as a small business. And if you're limiting your people, you're limiting your opportunities, you're limiting then the growth of your business, because you're going to be missing out on people who could be great candidates.
Yeah, that's actually true in so many aspects of it. And I think a lot of times, if you want the moon and the star, regardless of small or medium-sized companies or large organizations, you should be paying. If you want the moon and the star, like I was just having this discussion with somebody, and same thing, they want someone with 10 plus years of experience, a manager level, but they only want to pay $50K. You can't get the moon and a star and then it's $50K. A lot of hiring managers have misconception too. Well, right now, there's so many people looking for a job. So someone would take it. Okay, someone may take it, but then they're not going to stay. The reality is they're not going to stay. So if you're okay with that, you're okay with always repeatedly just filling that role, no problem. Then keep doing it. In the end of the day, it's still a cost, right? It's a cost to keep filling in the role repeatedly. And I think a lot of times people don't understand, a lot of hiring managers, companies don't understand the cost involved in hiring, cost involved in replacement hiring, cost involved with, a current research suggests that it can cost up to 150% of the person's ending salary to replace them, because that's taking into consideration loss of productivity, getting someone, like the recruitment cost, the lost time until you're finding someone to come in, and then the amount of time it takes to get them up to the level of the person that's left, right? So all these things are costs. So what people need to understand is, hiring managers and organizations need to understand is, when you're paying the market rate or above the market rate, you're also getting a good caliber, because that's what you're paying for. So if you pay for $50K, you're going to get $50K worth of caliber, even if someone has 10 years experience, because if someone knows their worth, they will not take a low-paying job. They're not going to take a cut from their salary because they know what they're worth and they know what they bring to the table. Fine, times are bad. Sometimes people will take it, but they're taking it as a filler until they find what they're looking for. So I believe you always get what you pay for. And if you want a good caliber, you should be able to pay for it. You should pay for it. And if you can't pay for it, then you need to bring your requirements to the level of what you can afford. Match it to what you can afford. If you don't want to train people and you want someone experienced, then you got to pay for the experience, because that's what you're paying for, right? They're going to know the ins and outs. They'll be able to deliver work faster. If it takes them 30 minutes to do a job that takes them 3 hours, a normal person take 3 hours, but you're paying for that, right? You're paying them to complete work in short period of time. And I think I posted this too. I like that quote. You're not paying me because I can get a job done in 30 minutes. That's my experience that allows me to get the work done in 30 minutes. Which is that quote. I don't remember the exact quote, but it's so true though. You're paying for experience, not paying how fast they can deliver. The fastness only comes with experience. The amount of situations you've dealt with. Like, can I say I can deal with the same thing when I first started my HR career to what I can deal with now? No, because the situations I've dealt with over the 14 plus years of my HR career has trained me and gave me the ability to now be able to quickly resolve problems and issues and navigate through problems and issues really faster, compared to when I only had 1 year of experience in the HR field. So all this stuff equals salary, right? And I think a lot of times even people have this so talking back to hiring 2 people at $50K, How about you hire one person? I've seen this happen in a lot of companies where they'll hire one person at 50K, but then they realize then the person can't do all the work, so they need to hire another person. So that's poor assessment of what you really needed. If you properly assess of what you need and the work quality and productivity and efficiencies and all that stuff, then you'll be able to judge better on what the pay should be. Because let's face it, salary is also equal to productivity. Salary is also equal to efficiency levels, right? You're paying for all this. If you want increase in productivity and increase in efficiencies, you got to be able to pay for it. You can't expect 50K caliber to produce at 100K level. It's just not going to happen.
And the reality is, to be realistic, you need to understand how to be user-centric. Instead of deciding, well, we have this amount of budget and this is what we want, which countless companies do, right? They want the moon and the stars. They ask for everything based on a budget that they decide on, that they arbitrarily decide on, instead of doing research and understanding what is the market looking for. If you want somebody who's going to be a high quality candidate, you need to understand what the expectations of a high quality candidate look like. You can't just tell them we're paying X because this is what we're paying for. You're not going to get a high quality candidate that way. But if you understand, well, this is where high quality candidates hang out, this is what their salary expectations are, this is what their work expectations are, you'll know how to create an offer that will meet what they're looking for. Because Kevin makes a great point here about lowballing during salary negotiations will actually cause you a problem even before naturally increasing attrition. You're going to lower your close rates.
Yeah.
Because most organizations, the reality is they don't post a salary or salary range when they...
I never understand why, because I always do.
Look, that's a different story, because you're also lowering the number of people and the qualified candidates that you're bringing in. But that's a different story. So what happens is that if you're not clear on what the expectations are of the market, you bring a person through the whole conversation until you get to the point where you want to make them an offer. But if your salary expectations aren't up to what their salary expectations are, you're lowering your close rate right there. So you're lowering your ability to hire a candidate, and then it sets you in a weak position of if they're even willing to negotiate thereafter. And then, like Kevin says, it's going to increase attrition, because employees either will be unhappy and feel lowballed to begin with, or they'll realize, you know what, it's not worth, staying here for this amount of money, and because they deserve going somewhere else. And so I think you and I have discussed the idea of employee lifetime value before.
Mm-hmm.
And employee lifetime value is a curve that if anybody's not seen it, anybody who's watching who's not seen it, I highly recommend you look it up. ELTV, employee lifetime value. And there's different aspects of the curve, and there's different pictures of the curve. The one that's really relevant for the conversation we're having right now is when you see two short-term employees in the value they bring relative to what one longer-term employee brings, it really is a stark visual to understand the impact of why you don't want to have a turnstile. You don't want people rotating through every 3 to 6 months where you think, oh, I'll just replace them because I get to pay lower money. It's costing you money to do that. It's costing you significant money to do that. And it's costing you capabilities. It's costing you the ability to grow and achieve goals because you don't have somebody in that seat for that time.
That's a good point. Is KPIs. How can you deliver on your organization's KPIs if you don't have the right caliber? A lot of companies are not thinking in the terms of the KPIs either. If you have, every company has KPIs, right? You have goals, 5 years plans that you want to hit. You can't hit those without having proper people working for you, right? The right caliber, the right, I call them resources, in the sense that you need the right set skills, caliber, the whole 9 yards to deliver to your KPIs. If your goal is to keep growing in your organization, how are you going to hit that if you don't have the right people with the right skills working for you? And right people, the right skills also equal paying them proper, right? The payment isn't paying them proper, and other companies have this, well, we have benefits. Great. Benefits don't pay my bills. Benefit packages is not paying my groceries. I need X amount of salary that goes physically into my bank to pay for my lifestyle. Not benefits, not the free lunches. That stuff, great perks to have, but that's not what pays people's bills. So salaries also needs to be equal. Like, you need to pay people for what you're looking for. You need to know your return on your investment. I think a lot of people get stuck on, well, this is our budget. Yeah, but what are you looking for? If you need X, if you're going to pay someone 100K, they should be producing at 300K or 400K level. Like, that's the return. A lot of organizations not even measuring the return on the investment, how much each employee is generating return on their investment. But if you start analyzing things in that perspective, you'll see like the caliber you're paying great amount of money for is going to generate a lot more for you for your buck. And also, great point to Kevin is, first of all, I don't understand companies not posting and being upfront what you're paying for. Second of all, if you're going to lowball candidates, you're only creating more work for you during the hiring process, because great calibers will not be lowballing. Unless it's a desperate situation, they'll probably, again, take it for temporary. They're not going to tell you that, but that's a given. No one's going to take a low-paying salary when they know they can make more. Someone might take it until they get a better offer, and then they're going to leave, right? And then you're going to start recruitment again. It's like a never-ending cycle, and it's just.
You make a really great point too, that when the economy starts to recover, those people will all abandon you. Anybody who you've lowballed that has taken a job with you just to keep them through COVID times is going to abandon you. So if you want them there as you grow, you better be paying them right. Because if you don't pay them right, they will find another job at the soonest opportunity. Now, there is a caveat to it, though, that the studies have shown that there is a range, that a range of pay of a plus or minus 20%. Under that amount won't necessarily encourage a person to leave, depending on situation, depending on environment, depending on all of those things. But the reality is thinking back on when I was looking at those recruiting books, the difference between a small company and a large company was often more than 20%. There was often a greater mismatch between 20%, which means that by offering these lower salaries, you're setting yourself back, you're slowing yourself down, and you're reducing your ability to hit your KPIs. This is a great point here by Krupa.
Yeah, so I do make sure during the screening process that salary expectations are not mismatched. If a candidate is rejecting the offer after investing the time and energy in 3 to 4 long interviews, then it's going to affect the employer brand. Yes, great point. Employer branding. Well, low salaries is also impacting your brand as a company, as an employer, as a company as well. You tend to then build a rep, again, Glassdoor. I think a lot of people forget we live in a digital world where people openly talk. There's platforms like Glassdoor where people will share their experiences, and openly I've seen employees say low salary, like some companies. So branding, it takes a toll on your branding, and if your image is that you want to hire great candidates, caliber and experience, you want the moon and the star, but you're not going to pay for it, then that's the brand you've built. And guess what? When you build that brand, you're not going to get good caliber anyways. You're not going to attract the right talent to come work for your organization. A lot of people have this misconception that, well, everybody needs a job, and so the power tripping some companies have. But I want to go back to what mismatching with the salary expectation. That's why I always post when I'm recruiting. I'm upfront with the salary, because I'm not going to waste candidates' time. I'm not going to waste my time or the hiring manager's team's time if the salaries are not aligned. And a lot of times candidates are also not giving proper ranges, and they're just saying the market rate. I just want the market rate, and I'm pretty sure the company's going to pay market rate. You don't know the company's paying market rate. Company can be lowballing you. Just do your research, guys. Candidates, you need to know your market rate. Go to PayScale. Like, that's what Brianna Gunning is saying. Like, well, how do you? I have 5 years experience and still getting paid minimum wage, but you're getting paid minimum wage. One, because you don't know what your worth is. So you need to go figure out what your worth is as candidates. Go to payscale.com. Companies, same thing. When you're looking for calibers, what set skills and experiences, you need to do a market assessment and know what the market is paying. That's the only way to track the great talent that your organization seeks and needs in order to keep hitting your KPIs and hitting your organization goals. So everybody should be doing their part. And candidates, I would just say, don't take it. If companies lowballing you, don't take it. I get it. If it's a desperate situation, you should take it. But you should never take a low-paying job, because to me, that speaks volumes on the company's culture. It does relate back to the company's culture, because if they think they can lowball and get away with it, then that's stemming from their culture as an organization. They think that they can just mistreat employees however they want, because employees, this famous line that uses, there's more than a dime or dozens, I forgot the phrase, but basically having that concept, and I think a lot of companies right now probably have this, is that, well, there's so many people, they're looking for a job, so I'm providing. So power tripping.
Yeah, and you know what the reality is I've heard of scenarios since COVID where organizations have taken advantage of that, where organizations will, know that they can pay less because people are desperate to find jobs, right? And it's a sad situation, and it you speak to culture, and it speaks to the values of the leaders. Because what do they value? Do you value having great people in doing great work? Or do you value having, people who are replaceable? Is that what you think they are? And that's the problem too, is that if you're treating people that you have no problem paying somebody else a few months later because that person's leaving, you're treating people as replaceable. You're treating them as inputs, and all you're valuing is the business, not the impact on them. And in the end, you're hurting your business, because as was pointed out, you're going to hurt your employer brand. You're going to hurt your employer brand. I really appreciate Krupa's point, because one, the idea is that you have to make sure that expectations are matched. In the ideal, like you're saying, have the salary expectations up front, list that up front. But then
it's a secret. I don't know why companies think it's a secret.
But you know why companies think it's a secret, and it's something that seems to be coming to light more and more often. I've seen posts on it, I've seen tweets on it. The fact that employees aren't allowed to talk salary with each other benefits the company and not the employees. And that's the reality, is it's become a taboo to talk salary. But the reality is I've also heard numerous scenarios where things are discovered when employees start talking salaries, when they find out how much less women are paid than men for the same role. But it's in the company's best interest. They're defending themselves. They're protecting themselves when they say, don't talk about salary. So if you're putting up front that the new person is making between X and Y amount, then everybody knows that. And if you're underpaying somebody else to do the same role or a similar role, they're now going to know about that. It's if you don't have a consistency in your bands, that's a problem. And if you don't have consistency in the way you pay people, that's a problem. But that's what happens with a lot of organizations. They don't want people to know how much they're paying everybody, so they hide it.
See, in Ontario, before Ford government came into play, Liberals were actually, well, it already passed, the bill was already introduced, and we were going to move into the salary bill, where all postings had to be transparent and you had to post the salary up front. But then Ford came and scrapped that bill. I think that bill was much needed. That's my practice. My practice been day one, with the bill or not with the bill, was to post salaries, because it's not a secret. And it saves so much time for both parties involved. But that bill would have brought this whole transparency to light, where you had to share the salary upfront. You couldn't post a job without disclosing the salary. I think that bill is needed. Ontario, Canada, US, I think that bill is a much needed bill, and I hope one day somebody brings that bill back. But I think if you can be transparent, it's not a secret, and I like the band. You should have salary bands. And yes, sometimes if you're hiring a higher caliber, then you should be paying for that. So that, like, it's not really the secret of salaries. Like, I would not stop an employee from talking about their salary, because their salary is their confidential. It's up to them who to share that information. It's your choice. But if we hired somebody in the role, but they're also higher caliber, then as an organization, you have to pay them higher, right? You can't say, well, band says this. Yes, that's the band, but then you also have to pay the candidate. Like with salaries, I look at it two ways. One is what you're looking for as a company and the skills you're looking for. And then there is a market assessment for that job, but then there's a candidate assessment. You have to do an assessment when you hire somebody. When you're ready to make an offer to a candidate, then you need to assess the candidate's caliber and what is candidate's market. It's no longer, when you're hiring, you look at the job. But when you're making an offer, you need to look at the candidate. You need to look at what they're bringing to the table. And then that's where PayScale is really handy tool for hiring people, HR people, to go and fill in the information of the caliber you're hiring, want to make an offer to know what their market rate looks like. So when I'm hiring, that's why I tell my hiring team managers is, listen, there's two sets when you look at salary. One is what you're looking for right now as when you're hiring. Then you need to have a buffer, because you may get a candidate that you may find a candidate that's amazing and excellent, but they're above what you're looking to hire. And maybe you're willing to hire them and pay them more. But then you need to, like, that budget, there needs to be room for these anticipating these things. So then with the hiring managers, I always say you got to look at two things. Role itself, and that's what the role for this is the market value, but then the candidate itself has a market rate and they're bringing their value. So when you're making an offer, it shouldn't be based on, well, this is the job and this is where we're going to pay. No, you need to look at what the candidate is bringing to the table and what is the candidate's assessment and what is their market value. You need to pay the candidate's market value, and that's how the offers should be drafted. And I think sometimes companies have a little bit of a mismatch between the role and who they're hiring. You can't do the assessment on the candidate until you're ready to make an offer. But before you make an offer, you should be doing an assessment to educate yourself on how much is this candidate worth. I would do that before I even present the offer to the candidate. Forget presenting to the candidate. I do that assessment and let the hiring manager know, hey, if you want to hire this person, this is how much they're worth, the market. So we can't go below. We're going to have to either go market or a little bit above to secure the candidate. So now it's your choice. Here's up to you now. Or you hire candidate B, who is not up to candidate A level, but still to the level of the role that you want to fill, and they're within the budget. So you let the you got to give the whole scenario, but in short, you have to pay candidates that you want to make an offer to their market, not the job. It's not about the job anymore. It's who you're hiring. And I think sometimes that's where the disconnect is, where when you're making an offer, you're not actually looking at the candidate. You're just stuck on, well, this is a job. Great, but you need to look at the candidate and do an assessment on the candidate's market rate, and then ask yourself, can we afford this candidate? It's either a yes or it's no, but let the hiring manager know this is how much this candidate's going to cost if you really want this candidate.
And so to sum up, I would say that is a great explanation of it. And I would say, just to sum up, that if there's some sort of mismatch in expectations between the company and the candidate, one way or another, you're going to pay. It might be that you don't get the candidate you want. It might be that they come on, but they don't work hard for you. It may be that they come on and don't stay long. They're one way or another. if there's a mismatch between candidate expectations and company expectations, the company will end up paying for it, and that's just the reality. That's what I would sum this up with.
Yep, I totally agree. In the end of the day, you get what you pay for. If you're gonna lowball, if you're not gonna pay up to the market rate, you're just basically gonna always be in this vicious cycle of always recruiting for the same role over and over and over, and that is gonna cost you probably 20 times more than actually paying the market rate. It's going to cost you a lot more. As they say, it costs 150% of the actual salary of the candidate left you. So on that note, we're going to end. Our segment is, do your homework, do your research, and be realistic when you're making job offers, and pay people the rate, because you're going to benefit. It's a greater benefit to pay people the rate that they deserve versus just cutting and being cheap on salaries. Don't be cheap. In the end of the day, it's costing you a lot of money in the long run and creating a poor employer brand for yourself, and your turnover rate's going to be high. It's just really not worth it to do it. So on that note, we're going to end our segment. We will see you guys back on Thursday. Not sure. Do we have a guest, Gil?
I don't think we do right now, no.
Yeah, right now we don't have a guest, but we will confirm our topic in the coming few days on Thursday. So Thursday, 12:30, we'll be back with another segment, with another topic, and maybe with a guest. So until then, and hope you guys your week's off to a great start, and we'll see you guys on Thursday. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.